Hello and welcome to Valiant Growth Extra, Episode 1. I've decided that since questions are starting to come in, I would create a separate show where I answered and covered some of them. Now you can leave comments, questions on the website at valiantgrowth.com, which is my preferred place for it. But I'm also looking at the Valiant Growth listener group on Facebook. You can search for that. And occasionally YouTube as well. So today I got 2 comments and questions. Well, one is a comment, the other one is a question that I want to cover. So let's begin. First one is, somebody asked this on the Facebook listener group. What do you do when someone suggests, for instance, grabbing a lunch when you have no desire to spend even on drinks, but find it hard to say, well, I do not want to spend money on food or drinks? And there was an answer that I think is a good little tactic that I'll read out, which was, so a listener wrote this as an answer. Instead of grabbing lunch at a restaurant, you could suggest that your friend buys a takeaway. Then you can both go to a park and your friend can eat their lunch while you spend nothing. I think that's a reasonable approach. That's a reasonable little tactic, and you can think of other things. It has often worked for me to just say, look, I'm not hungry, or something along those lines, and you can skip this. But the reason why this question sparked my interest is that I've actually gotten a lot more benefit out of just embracing frugality as part of who I am, publicly as well as privately. And I got a lot more benefit out of that than coming up with tactics of how to deal with that. And I have to say that in my adult life, whenever I've chosen to embrace a certain aspect of my personality or what kind of approaches I was using at a present moment, how I do things, what I believe in, I've never regretted it. In fact, I think I've always benefited from it. I can't think of a single instance where it affected me negatively. I mean, I guess it depends. If we look at political stuff, things like that, yes. But when there's no compulsion, no perceived compulsion for the other person, I can't see the downside of it. So I think big picture on a strategy level, it's just easier to embrace it. Just let everybody know that, hey, this is who I am. I get pleasure from being frugal. And I'm just going to make these choices. And it can seem scary, but people just get used to it. I don't think there's anybody in my life who would be shocked if I suggested going to a park or something, or for a walk instead of going to the pub or something along those lines. If I suggested some kind of frugal alternative to an activity, or if I said, oh, I don't want to buy this thing because doesn't work with my frugality or minimalism or anything else for that matter. There's no surprise, you embrace it. The more you embrace it, I think the more people will accept it. Now, if they perceive that that's also, that this is your mission, you're proselytizing and you're trying to say you have to do it too, well, you run into problems then. I run into problems then. But when it's just something like, no, look, this is my preference, and this is what I'm going to do. And the best way to embrace it is in action and everywhere where people can find you. If you look at me, you look at my Facebook profile, you'll find stuff on frugality and how I'm saving money on something or finding things in the street or something like that. You can listen to the podcast, you will see it. You can go to my YouTube vlog and you will see it. So my suggestion is big picture, risk it. You're not going to lose with embracing who you are. That is my experience. Now, the second comment that I want to talk about is on the latest episode, How to Stop Worrying About the World Without Giving Up on It, which was an interview with Shane Radcliffe, and which is episode 52, if I'm not mistaken. A quick recap here about the episode. The subject was how to be able to take freedom into your own hands in your life. So how can you say, I'm going to choose the path of depending on no one, and like what can I actually do personally instead of worrying about politics, worrying about all sorts of things that are outside of your control. So that's what the interview was about. But I got this very thoughtful comment that I wanted to read out to you. So here it goes. I find myself really valuing the attention paid to underlying needs in this discussion. It makes me wonder how much libertarianism develops as a result of experiencing authority figures, collectives that are uninterested in or antagonistic towards your needs, where the same authorities, collectives wouldn't be considered a problem if they were effective at meeting needs. If authorities and collectives are antagonistic and harmful, you just want them to back off so you can get on with your life, which is the essence of being a libertarian. And certainly many of us have had experiences that fit into that category. Within an environment full of dysfunctional, powerful people, libertarianism and anarchism are a very coherent and life-supportive psychological defenses. Yet, if powerful people in your environment are functional and benevolent, you can live very well despite their presence, and in fact gain from nurturing support and resources that they can provide. We become more dependent upon independent judgment and extensive individual boundaries when we cannot trust others to use their power benevolently. So perhaps another alternative, which is also actionable, is to move to a part of the world which has a collective and authorities that you can trust to reliably support your and other people's needs being met. An additional actionable step is to work on your skills of self-expression, developing the ability to approach and communicate with powerful people in a way which is most likely to result in increased connection and better needs meeting. People who are good at this are often the people who are actually making the world we live in a better place in tangible ways, including moving it in a more socially and economically free direction. And after successfully acting upon these, the otherwise very important libertarianism psychological defense of simply wanting segregation from powerful people, which is what Vonu, the subject of the episode that the comment is on, sounds like to me, may no longer be necessary. To give an example drawing on what was mentioned in the podcast, I'd be much less interested in homeschooling and unschooling if I could reliably expect schools to be highly functional, needs-meeting, human-friendly places, and in the right part of the world surrounded by the right people, that may well be possible. So that was the comment. I think that highlights a very, very interesting angle, because as an ex-libertarian, and I know that the commenter comes from that perspective as well. I'm apolitical now. I still favor as many of the ideas of individual freedom, but I'm just not interested in politics anymore. But anyway, so coming from this perspective, I think she's very, very right in what she writes here. It's libertarianism and the desire for individual freedom, the desire to just have autonomy, be left alone, have relationships that are trade-based, as few obligations as possible, as few rules as possible. Even I think that's also part of it. I'm sorry if I'm not 100% ideologically accurate here, but yeah, you get the point. That desire can very likely stem from seeing the failure of powerful people acting in a way of meeting our needs. I in fact think that almost anyone in this world growing up will experience some kind of powerful figure, a person having some kind of authority, using it in a way that's not effective in meeting their own needs. So, like, you could put many words on that, but not, just to stay neutral here. So yeah, just seeing power wielded ineffectively, or in a way that doesn't seem fair. And you can have many responses to that, and this is interesting where you can go from this. You can say, abolish all power and make this all voluntary, and that is the libertarian, and especially the kind of anarchist approach. But you can also say, okay, I must become power, and the people who get to power are probably driven by this. So I have to replace these people to get my own needs met, and perhaps the needs of others as well. I gotta get into politics, and I gotta do that. Or the alternative, I can't do it, but I just gotta change the people who are in it, which is also not running directly, but for office, but supporting other people or funding other people. Or you can say, we got to change the rules of how power works. And a lot of kind of more radical political schools of thought are based on this, and even the less radical ones. Or you can have something along the lines of, we must learn how to submit and cooperate with power. And Stoicism has angles of this, which it kind of is learn to not care about what these people do. And certain aspects of Christianity have this. So it's very interesting how you approach this. And I agree 100% with her that although the kind of standard libertarian in me protests, it is possible to find places in which power is wielded in such a way that it's not a problem, or is in fact good. It works for you, and it works for everybody involved, which is not something that most libertarians like to consider. Definitely not Vonu, but that could totally be the case. And you can make an argument that, at least for some people, that is true in certain countries where they live in. My thought on this is that it really depends on how much risk you want to take. The more you get involved, the more interdependent you become in relationship. Every step of the way, you are giving up control. I think that is almost kind of an iron law of the more and the deeper your relationships go, the less control you have in your life by definition, and the more risk you're taking. On the other hand, if things go the right way, it will lead to your needs being met much more effectively for all sorts of reasons. First of all, is that we have a separate independent need for companionship, and then you have effectiveness in trading. Specialization is what I'm trying to say here. You have specialization both economically and in terms of just what each individual can bring to a relationship, and the greater your circle, the more likely it is that you will have an answer to everything. And I think this approach of find a place where government works, or where the collective works, is kind of the extreme end of this continuum, from the loner to this. It's the extreme end of high risk, high reward. So you can potentially get a lot more, like significantly more, out of a group, and you can get a lot further, but your destiny and your choices are irrevocably tied to working with this group and what happens to it. And whatever happens to it will have a direct and strong impact on your life that you will not be able to control. And that is the risk that comes with that territory. So I think, for anyone considering Vonu, considering politics, things like that, considering, okay, how do I live my life? How do I integrate with the collective? First of all, I don't want to forget the fact that learning something like NVC or some other communication technique, especially, I think, getting rid of enemy imagery of seeing people in authority as evil or manipulative or whatever else, getting rid of that imagery will just make your interactions better and will make it more likely that you get your needs met. But beyond that, I think you have to look into yourself and you say, okay, where am I right now? And how much risk am I willing to take for how great a reward? And some people go from being very autonomous to easing into and learning their way into becoming more interdependent, and other people go from being more interdependent to becoming more autonomous. And I guess you just have to see, how much risk do I want to take in my life? How much control am I willing to give up in exchange for deep, connected, significant, numerous relationships with others? So I thought I would share this comment and these thoughts with you. And if you feel like it, again, I suggest that you just go to the episode on valiantgrowth.com that you have some thoughts on and leave a comment. But you also have the Valiant Growth listener group for just discussions in general with other listeners. And or if we are on YouTube, hey, you know how to comment. And if this goes well, I might repeat this in the future and have a few more extra episodes that don't have to be so structured, and just keep a conversation alive and sharpen the edges of the ideas that we're talking about with your feedback. So thank you for listening, and I dare you to flourish today.